If you're a Manchester United supporter, what we all saw yesterday wasn't just a press conference. It was a crisis being declared in real time.
It absolutely was.
We're diving straight into what was a highly unusual, very pointed, and I think calculated statement from the manager, Ruben Amorim, after that 1-1 draw with Leeds.
He didn't just answer questions, he walked out. But before he did, he delivered this direct challenge to the club's new hierarchy.
It felt like a deliberate confrontation, didn't it?
Oh, completely.
Yeah.
Using a post-match media session to air these kinds of deep structural problems is, well, it's almost unheard of. And the words he chose, which we've gone through very carefully, they cut right to the heart of the power dynamic at the club.
The one being set up right now by Sir Jim Ratcliffe and INEOS.
Precisely. So our mission today is to unpack the exact language he used in this ultimatum and figure out what it signals for the future of Manchester United's football structure.
Okay, so let's set the scene. Let's establish the context for this frustration, because his anger was, it was clearly rooted in what happened on the pitch.
It was. That 1-1 draw at Ellen Road, that was the second time in just 4 days that United had dropped crucial points.
A really frustrating result.
Definitely. Leeds scored first through Brendan Aronson, and Matthias Cunha gets the equalizer around the 65th minute, but they just couldn't find a winner. And you could feel that frustration, especially with the need for 3 points right now.
But the deeper issue, and you really can't avoid this when you look at the source material, is just the reality of the squad Amorim is working with. He is managing a team that is stretched so thin because of this perfect storm of injuries and AFCON commitments.
That's the invisible pressure behind this dip in form. Just look at the list of players who are out. Bruno Fernandes, De Ligt, Mason Mount, Mbomo, Amad Diallo. These aren't just squad players.
They're key figures.
They're key figures, and that severely limits any kind of tactical flexibility he might want to have.
And you could see that strain playing out right there on the pitch. At Ellen Road, he felt he had to field 6 defenders at one point, didn't he? Just to keep things stable.
He did. And the bench. The bench really told the whole story.
It was a crisis reflected on the substitutes list.
Absolutely. He only brought on one attacking player, Joshua Zirkzee. The rest of it was made up of, U21 Academy kids, the backup keeper, Alte Baindir, and Tyrell Malacia.
And speaking of Malacia, the source material describes him as a bomb squad member. For anyone listening who might not be familiar with that term, what does that really mean in this context?
Yeah, bomb squad is a pretty stark term. It basically describes players who've been pushed aside by management. They're not really part of the first team training. They're seen as surplus to requirements, often just waiting for a transfer.
So the fact that he's back on the bench.
The fact that Amorim is so desperate for bodies that he has to bring a player like that back into the fold, even just for the bench, it just screams how critical the lack of professional depth is right now.
Right. So that's the boiling point. But like you said, he didn't just complain about injuries. He used this moment to launch a much bigger critique. And that brings us to the core of this conflict, where he kept hammering home this difference between being the manager and the coach.
This is what it all comes down to. He was so explicit. He said, and I'm quoting directly, "I came here to be manager of Manchester United, not the coach."
And that's not just semantics, is it?
Not at all. That is a highly charged political statement in football. A manager, in the classic sense, controls the whole footballing operation, recruitment, contracts, strategy. A coach just trains the team he's given. Amorim is demanding the power of a manager.
But hold on a second. He signed in November 2024, and his official title was head coach. So isn't he trying to change the rules after the game started? Is this just him using a moment of frustration for leverage? Or is there any evidence INEOS promised him more?
That is the crucial question, isn't it? And the sources do give us a few hints. When he was appointed, he did say publicly that he'd be allowed to do things my way, but the title was head coach.
So there was always a tension there.
It was built in from day one. He's arguing my way means managerial control, but it seems INEOS has a structure where he's just supposed to coach the players the sporting director brings in. So he's forcing the issue now in public.
And when he made that point, he aimed it squarely at the new setup. He said, every department, the scouting department, the sporting director needs to do their job. I will do mine.
That is him aiming directly at the INEOS hierarchy. He's saying, my coaching is suffering because the players I have aren't good enough, and that's the fault of your scouting and sporting director departments. He's basically positioning himself as the only one doing his job properly.
And we know this frustration has been building. He loves his 3-4-3 formation, but he's hinted recently that he might have to move away from it. Why was that?
It's the same problem. Resources. He tied his tactics directly to transfer funding. He said that to make the 3-4-3 work, you need very specific, high-quality players. And he said, we need to spend a lot of money and we need time.
So we saw the money wasn't coming.
Right. So he started to adapt his tactics, and that adaptation failed against Leeds. He's been hinting at this for weeks, but this was the moment he stopped hinting and started demanding.
There was also a moment in that press conference, the sources mention it, that just says everything about this disconnect. A journalist asked him if he knew about the club's recruitment structure when he took the job, and he just didn't answer.
Silence can be the loudest answer, can't it? It strongly suggests one of two things. Either he was misled about how much power he'd have, or he knew the title was head coach. But he just totally underestimated how restrictive INEOS planned to be.
Either way, it points to a massive gap between what he expected and the reality of his role.
A huge gap. And that friction set the stage for the most dramatic part of all this.
The gauntlet being thrown down, the 18-month deadline.
This is where he really played his hand. He's got a contract until 2027, but he just ignored that completely in his statement. He kept repeating this 18-month timeline. He said, I will do mine for 18 months, and then we move on. And then again, that is going to finish in 18 months. That was the deal.
So he's basically put his own expiration date on his job, forcing them to act within that window. What does that do strategically? How does that give him leverage?
It gives him enormous leverage. By setting that clock in public, he forces INEOS into a corner. If they don't give him what he wants in that time frame, they face the PR disaster of losing another high-profile manager less than 2 years in.
The manager they spent a lot of money to get.
Exactly. It makes him a lame-duck coach if they don't back him. So to avoid that chaos, they either have to give him the power he wants now or start looking for his replacement immediately. It gives him huge power in the next transfer window.
And that pressure led to a pretty fiery moment about the board's confidence in him, didn't it?
Oh, it did. When a journalist asked if he felt the board's trust, he shot back with this really sharp accusation about leaks from inside the club. He said, I noticed that you receive selective information about everything.
Wow. So he's not just being defiant. He's accusing them of actively undermining him to the media.
That's exactly what he's doing. He feels he's being forced to fight this battle in public because of what's happening behind the scenes.
And he used that moment to sort of puff out his chest a bit, to demand respect by comparing himself to other big-name managers.
It was an incredible bit of self-assertion. He said, I know that my name is not Tuchel, it's not Conte, it's not Mourinho, I'm the manager of Manchester United. He's basically saying his position alone should grant him the same power those guys command.
But despite all the threats, he did make it clear he isn't just going to walk away.
No, he was very clear on that. He said, I will do my job until another guy comes here to replace me. Which is another clever move. He's shifting all the pressure onto the board. He's daring them. If you don't like my demands, you have to fire me. I'm not quitting.
Which would mean a huge payoff.
A huge payoff. And it forces INEOS to own the decision completely.
And then, right before he walked out, he delivered one final jab. This one was about the constant criticism that surrounds the club.
Yeah, he aimed that one at the media figures. He said, if people cannot handle the Gary Nevilles and the criticism of everything, we need to change the club. He's saying the whole operational structure is too weak to handle the pressure, and if INEOS can't take the heat, they're the ones who need to change, not him.
Which brings us to the INEOS backdrop for all of this. Because this isn't just an attack on a faceless board, is it? It's a public confrontation with the new decision makers.
It is, precisely. The Glazers might still be the majority owners, but Sir Jim Ratcliffe and INEOS are the architects of this new football department. So every single complaint Amorim has about scouting or the sporting director, it's a direct critique of the structure INEOS built.
And this all comes at a very sensitive time for Ratcliffe and his team. It's not like they came in with a huge amount of goodwill from the fans.
Not at all. And if you connect this to the bigger picture, they're already on shaky ground. Ratcliffe has been criticized for cost-cutting for his comments about the women's team.
And probably the most damaging thing hanging over them is what happened with the last manager, Erik ten Hag.
That is the critical history here that Amorim is now using to his advantage. INEOS gave ten Hag a new contract, a big show of confidence, and then sacked him 4 months later.
It looked chaotic, a massive misstep.
It was seen by so many fans as costly and strategically inept. It just created this sense of instability right at the start of their reign. And that history means INEOS has zero room for error here. They cannot afford another messy, expensive managerial exit.
So this is a huge test then, a test of the INEOS management style and whether they're willing to give their man the control he says he was promised.
It forces them to define their model. Do they want a continental head coach who just works with the players he's given? Or are they going to revert to that traditional, all-powerful British manager model to keep Amorim happy?
So for you, the supporter, what does this all mean? We have a manager who has publicly put the club's new structure on notice. He's thrown out his contract length and replaced it with his own 18-month clock. He has tied his entire future to this shift in his role from coach to manager.
INEOS has a binary choice to make. They have to either tear up their new organizational chart and give him the keys to the kingdom, or they risk another humiliating and very expensive managerial dismissal.
Amorim said he was promised he could do things my way. The core question now, for every supporter watching this unfold, is this. Does INEOS truly back the manager they hired enough to give him the power he's demanding? Or is this explosive press conference the beginning of the end for this regime just months after it started?
That's the question, and the answer will define the entire Ratcliffe era.
We've broken down the quotes, we've laid out the context. Now we want to hear from you. How does this ultimatum change your trust in INEOS? Let us know what you think of Amorim's 18-month clock. If you're a United supporter watching, please like the video and comment with your name and city. Show us where the global support is watching from. We'll be tracking this every step of the way.